What the hell is wrong with you? The only thing that's ever been consistent in my life is that question. Welcome to the ADHD Untangled podcast. My name is Rosie Turner and I'm an accredited ADHD coach, yoga and Pilates instructor. But ultimately, I'm just a human being who knows what it feels like to live with ADHD. And after having 8 failed driving tests, impulsive decisions to get married and then divorced before the age of 27, and having an inability to handle any form of rejection, I've decided to dedicate my life to supporting the ADHD community. And this podcast will cover the 2 things that I love to talk about most: movement and ADHD. You will hear real life stories from real people living with ADHD. You will get advice from wellness industry and ADHD experts. So what are you waiting for? Let's get untangled and show the world what we are made of. Alexis, who the hell are you? And what is your life's mission?
Okay, so I'm Alexis. I am a woman. I'm a mother, 44. I currently live in London, but can't wait to move and live by the sea. I am born in London with Irish and Caribbean heritage. What else? I'm queer. I am somebody different every single day.
Yeah. And what's your life's mission today?
My life's mission today is about connection, community, and finding a way of living that feels doable.
And that's different every day.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So you wear many hats. So how do you go about creating connection and community?
I create communities. I build communities. So wherever I am, whatever I'm needing at that point in time, that's what I create. I don't wait for it. Very rarely kind of sit there and wait to find what I need. I just do what I need. I'm a doer rather than somebody who sits and waits for somebody else to do it. At the moment, I've created a fishing community.
Fishing community?
Yeah, my girlfriend lives by the sea, and so that's where I am at the moment, and I'm here every weekend and in the holidays, and we both have a love for fishing, so we've created a community and we're getting people to fish.
I love this. And I love that you said about I make, if I want something, I sort of make it happen, because I think there is this tendency, especially with ADHD, we focus a lot on the procrastination that, we all can get a lot of the time. But I always say about, the can't stop, won't stop side of us ADHDers, which again, can get quite a bit of a negative connotation at times. But I do think, it's how we make shit happen, not just for ourselves, but for others. And I think sometimes that, that impulsivity is like impulsivity gone right. I think Dr. Halliwell said is creativity. Impulsivity gone wrong can ruin your life in one day. But, there's so much strength to come from that. But tell me why you think community is so important.
I think the more I mature, the more I get older, the more I realize what makes me happy, and that is good connections, good experiences. I'm much less focused on what I thought made me happy in terms of success, in terms of like traditional kind of success, like money and how many followers I've got, and how nice my clothes are, or how pretty I am. Like none of that. Not saying that doesn't matter, because I'm still part of the system. I'm still definitely conditioned, but it's becoming less important as I get older, and actually the quality of my relationships are becoming far more important, and that's what I want to focus on.
Yeah, I love it. And do you know what? I was talking about this the other day, that because there's a stat, isn't there, that says, if we feel loneliness and we don't have communities, the opposite of that, basically, it's like smoking 15 cigarettes a day. It's like the equivalent for our health, right? So,
Right.
but in this research that I found, it said it doesn't matter that you just have a relationship or people around you, they have to be the right people and the meaningful relationships. And that's what you're creating. So you're creating something really special for yourself and others. And you've prioritized the right thing that needs to be
Exactly.
prioritized. So let's get into your ADHD diagnosis. Let's talk about, because I think you were diagnosed, is at 40 you were diagnosed with ADHD. So tell us what life was like before you realized that you had ADHD. Like, what were the struggles? How did it show up in your life?
I think for me, I was very disassociated. I didn't really understand my body. My head and my body weren't really connected. I felt like life was a struggle. I really struggled with energy levels, really struggled doing things. I felt like a failure. I felt like I started lots of jobs that I didn't ever finish. There was a lot, and I had so many excuses for things, not realizing, that I had this, and suddenly when I was diagnosed, it really felt like all the pieces were fitting into place again, and I could actually work with something and learn how to be in my body, how to be productive if I wanted to be productive, and not get sidetracked by all these roadblocks. That's how it felt really. There was just a bit of a mess. So it was really important for me getting diagnosed. But I will say, the more I've learned, the more now I am. I mean, diagnosis is a hoop that we have to jump through sometimes, and I feel like it can be so difficult getting diagnosed. The access to diagnosis is really tough, and actually what we're not doing now is empowering people to know themselves and actually just, you know what, you can diagnose yourself. You don't actually need a doctor, because doctors rarely know more than you. And in fact, I've had to teach many doctors about what I know and need. It's like, yeah, it just feels like everything, there's so much gatekeeping and access problems if you haven't got a diagnosis from a professional, that I think is one of the things that really pisses me off about ADHD and neurodiversity. And we're not listening to people, and we're not helping and supporting people, even if they haven't got a diagnosis or they're self-diagnosed.
Yeah, that's so important. This is why I always say, I get people reaching out for coaching and go, I haven't got a diagnosis. Am I allowed still to be coached? I'm like, of course you are. Self-diagnosis is a diagnosis, right? And especially the world that we're living in. What would you say to someone who is like at that stage now where they can't get a diagnosis, but they're sitting there well, it's going back to what you said earlier, instead of waiting for that permission to start understanding yourself. How would you say to somebody who is waiting for that permission right now because that lack of trust, like last time we spoke, you spoke about this, is I think being undiagnosed for so long, one of the biggest things we get is that lack of trust in ourselves, because we've been masking and we don't really even know that we have or how. And all of a sudden we get a diagnosis and we're like, what, who the hell am I?
Yeah.
Where do I even start? But part of that lack of trust, it doesn't just disappear. And I think that's why so many ADHDers don't step forward until they've got it on paper. But like you said, we know more than most of the doctors that are going to gatekeep that process. What's one step that they could take, do you think, to start to understand themselves away from getting an official diagnosis right now?
Well, I think probably what people do naturally is they go online and they do their research, right? And then they're like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, I've got that. And, you know, and then it's like, and then sort of light bulbs go off. And what I want to sort of empower people to say is, look, if you're really resonating with so many of the symptoms of ADHD, don't wait for a diagnosis to get support with your ADHD. There's so much support out there, like going to a coach or just online, looking up and doing research and thinking about ways of supporting yourself, and therapy as well. Therapy is really, really helpful in terms of talking through your issues and realizing that you're not crazy. You're not, you know, things are not insurmountable. and there is some support that you can get through that. So following your intuition, listening to your gut, and you're right. I think a lot of us have been told so much that what we're feeling isn't what we're feeling, or our instincts are wrong, or, that we actually just don't have that trust and that faith in our own knowledge.
It's so true. And I think, it's within diagnosis, it's within, even when people get their diagnosis, they're like, oh, actually, have I made this up? Have I really got ADHD? Like, it's so ingrained in us not to trust ourselves. There's something you spoke about there was therapy. And, a lot of my clients, they might come from therapy and then it takes a while for them to get used to coaching, because coaching is very much like, we meet you where you're at and we take you forward. And I'm always like, I'm not a therapist, so I will always, recommend going to a therapist if I notice anything that is out of my remit. But it got me thinking about that big relationship that we're being told by many people that, trauma and ADHD seem to be quite interlinked. What's your view on that? Do you have a view on that? Have you thought much about that?
It's a controversial one, isn't it? It's a bit of a minefield, I think. But my thoughts on it are, people with ADHD are probably the ones who just haven't learned to cope within the broken system. And so we are just like really struggling to put up and shut up and get on with daily life. Like, we're not robots, and we're not like little rats not little rats, maybe little hamsters. I don't know.
Although, that just reminded me of is when I used to work in a corporate world and everyone going to work, and I used to think, I'm not doing this for the rest of my life. It was like little rats going
Yeah,
to the city, getting off the tube.
exactly. It is, yeah. So for me, it's probably the other way round. I think ADHD people with ADHD, just the ones that haven't been able to fit into a system that is just completely fucked anyway. And actually the ones who have come kind of numb themselves and been able to like get on okay are probably the ones where there's something wrong.
Yeah. This
Uh,
is such an interesting view on it, though. It makes so much
yeah.
sense.
Yeah, because the more my eyes are opening to systemic issues and how messed up everything is, it's like we're not designed to live like this. So it's really natural that like loads of people will start to become diagnosed with things, because it just doesn't work. It really doesn't work. So that's my view on it. It's not completely fleshed out. I'm sure there's, and
None of it is right now, though, is it? That's the thing.
no, but yeah, that's what I'm thinking. And if you think about it, it like living in our society that generally it on the whole is designed to make us sick. There's so much that is making us sick in terms of chemicals in the air, in terms of plastic that they're finding in our blood now. Everything is really poisoning us, right? So actually we are all fucking traumatized, whether we like it or not.
Yeah.
It can be microplastics that is traumatizing us. It can be really horrible assaults that is traumatizing us. But if you think about it, we're all getting traumatized on a daily basis trying to fit in. So yeah.
Yeah, it's so true. And that's like, and this is the thing, it's like the rebellion. I always say, like, one of the words that come to mind for ADHD is the rebellion, but we're rebelling against a system that doesn't work. But we're always I work with a lot of children now, teenagers, and I'm really loving it. But at the same time, I'm getting more and more frustrated. And I can now see so clearly what I could not see then is, they're going to school and they're being put in these units because they're rebelling and they're not behaving and doing, because they can't remember everything that the teacher said or don't want to listen to it and then just repeat it back to them. Yeah, these children have, they're really good at physical education, food tech, all these other things, but that's not respected or appreciated. So they're put in a unit to be punished. And I'm
Yeah.
like, but what are they? They're rebelling against something that just doesn't work for them.
Yeah. I mean,
You
I
know,
mean, is the first thing, well, probably one of the first things that is like, we're not designed to sit for 6 hours a day in a classroom and, just concentrate on the teacher. It's boring for anyone. Like, what child do you know is designed to sit still for hours on end and concentrate? It's ridiculous when you think about it. I mean, when I had children, I mean, they were all over the place, and that's what children are designed to do. So why haven't we designed a setup that works for them?
it's so true. It's almost like it's hope this is obviously rebuilding it eventually and it being something else, but it does feel like we're at a point now where it's not working. There is this friction and something's got to happen.
Well, yeah, I think people are losing faith, and I think the rise of homeschooling and things is really taking an upturn because children are just not coping in the system, and I mean, there's so many things wrong with it, even for what we're getting taught and everything. I could go on for hours about that, but I won't.
Mhm.
But
That could be
it's
another
just not
episode.
working. Yeah.
Thank you. So let's just talk about what you was actually coming on to talk about. And this is untangling sex, shame, and ADHD. I've put here because we spoke a lot about this last time. And do you remember how shy I was
I
about
don't
the subject?
actually.
No, because I was so shy, and I was like, "Oh God," because I never talk about sex. And what we spoke about was we hadn't realised is that both of us came from a Catholic upbringing.
Yeah.
Um, and we were talking around the shame of what sexuality can feel like. So, that's how it felt for me. It was like even talking about it and just being very awkward around the whole conversation. And even my approach now to dating, is almost avoidant. And so do you want to just give a little bit of a background around, because you've done a lot around sexual liberation. Do you want to tell everyone what it is you do and why you've done this?
Well, I think I wrote a book about my sexual journey and my path to more sexual freedom. I don't think it will ever be totally free, but yeah, I think for me it was a really important process that kind of highlighted all of this, all like just it was all about unlearning all of the false truths that I thought were true and really held me back in terms of being in my body, enjoying sex and having fun with it, There was so much kind of heaviness and stigma attached to my sexuality, and it was like, oh, I really don't want to bring two more children up because I've got girls, and not being able to enjoy their bodies and have such a disconnect between things that feel really good and what society tells us we should be like. So that was where I kind of wanted to really explore my sexuality and just delve a little bit deeper into it. But more interestingly, I want to know where you are with sex and shame and and how you are now, because I'm a psychotherapist, so I'm obviously it's not, I need to I need to hear about you.
Well, do you know what? There has been progress, like the fact that I could talk about it and actually say it. Because last time you probably won't remember time blindness and working memory, but I actually remember I couldn't say the word, and you were like, "Sex." I was like, "Yeah, sex." So there's definitely progress. But what I loved about what you said last time, which really stayed with me, was I was sort of beating myself up a little bit around like, "Oh, why can't I be more casual with sex? Because I'm not living my life now, and that's because I've come from a Catholic background and maybe I'll never get rid of this shame." But actually, you shared that you identified with that as well. And you said this isn't about being just promiscuous and going out and sleeping around. And that's not what liberation or freedom means to everybody when it
Mm.
comes to sex. So I think that was great, because now I'm in a place of acceptance about, no, this is how I approach it. And it's not coming from a place of restriction, but I'm just figuring out what it means for me. And that's okay. Like, it hasn't got to be. And going back to ADHD, I think I've always been extreme. Everything I've done has been either all or nothing. And I think that's where I was probably getting to. And I was like, it's either got to be completely avoidant and no sex, or if I've got to go out there now and date and just have lots of sex, go on lots of dates and be this person. But no, it's about trying to find that balance for you, which looks different for everybody, right?
Yeah,
So I
definitely.
think that's been really helpful, but I'm still figuring it out, but there's definitely progress.
Yeah. And sometimes it is really difficult to figure out where things are coming from and why we make the decisions we make. I think for me, sex and, sex comes in lots of different forms. I think especially now that I'm with a woman, I think of sex very differently. It's not sort of like just penetration, like penis in vagina kind of sex.
Yeah.
Sex involves intimacy, it involves closeness, it involves skin on skin, it involves kissing, it involves lots and lots of different things that I won't embarrass you with right now. I think for me, that kind of closeness involves a real deep connection, and it involves trust, and it involves respect. And I feel unable to do that with people who I don't know very well. And I think sometimes we think, yeah, oh, there's a reason behind it, or we've got shame, or and actually no, it's we just need that. We need that deep connection before we can enter that phase with somebody, and that's okay. Yeah, that's really okay too. So yeah, it's important to kind of recognize what you need and not shame yourself ironically, you're kind of shaming yourself for not being sexually liberated, and you're kind of doing the inverse, right? Whereas society shames us for being too sexually liberated, and then we're like trying to be all emancipated and feminist
We'll
and
always find something to beat
yeah,
yourselves up about. Doesn't matter what way it is.
exactly, rather than just going, you know what, this feels right, what I'm doing feels right. And the more we get to know ourselves, the more we start to sort of ask ourselves why are we doing this? Where is this coming from? The kind of better we feel about ourselves, because we know. But it's slow, and it's not easy. We don't have all the answers straight away, because untangling all of the kind of like, you know, reasons we do things is difficult, really difficult.
Definitely. And he's talking about like ADHD and masking. Do you think that, you know, being able to start to unmask after a diagnosis, which can be, one of the biggest things that happen, do you think that has helped you or enabled you to unmask in the bedroom and with your sexuality? Do you think ADHD diagnosis played a part in that?
Yeah, probably. It's been, it's been quite a slow unmasking process, and I'm always kind of like peeling away the layers all the time. And yeah, I think so, but I can't figure out exactly how at this moment in time, but definitely.
No, I also think what you said about like you need to figure out what you want in terms of your sexuality, or how you want to show up. I don't see how you can even do that anyway until you really know what it is you're living with, who it is you are. Until you ask those questions yourself, like about your life overall, you as a person, it's gonna be very hard to unmask in the bedroom too, isn't it? And in fact, I bet most of us actually leave that till last. Like, that's not important. I need to sort of deal with what's happening here, like the tangible stuff, like getting more organized or whatever it is. But actually, probably see that as something that isn't important. How important is our sex life, would you say?
Well, yeah, I think it depends, because, as you said, people with ADHD can do things in extremes, right? So it kind of depends on how much it's affecting your life, and how debilitating it is sometimes, or how sort of in the way it's getting. Some people with ADHD have sex, some people might call it sex addiction. And so, that will be something that they really need to address, especially if there's risky behavior going on. And we know that ADHD can be connected with unsafe behavior. So I think it just depends on the personal situation and how much it needs to be addressed, really.
Do you think there's any other ways that ADHD might show up in our sex lives apart from like extreme behavior, maybe masking, like we mentioned? Is there anything else that you think plays a part?
I think in terms of ADHD and sex, I think it's a lot of it will be the kind of disassociation and not feeling in your body, not feeling like there's sometimes a disconnect between actually the act and actually just really feeling what's happening. And so sometimes, we can just be completely somewhere else, and so
So
you're
true.
so you're not in it and you're not really feeling the pleasures of it. And I do know that, things like having orgasms and things is quite difficult sometimes for people who really struggle with that connection between the mind and body. So that can be a struggle. And yeah, just enjoying it in general. You really need to be very present in
Mm.
order to really have a great experience. And that can be an issue.
Yeah, it's a big struggle. It's like we say, going back to that presence, isn't it? That I think that is key in everything, and especially with relationships overall. While I think there's, from what we see is with ADHD and relationships, there's so much chaos. There tends to be a lot more chaos than those without ADHD. And I think a lot of that comes down to what you just said there, is about that, we're always somewhere else. How would someone know that they've been, I know this might sound stupid, but like, how, for people that might not even know what the word disassociation means, like, how do you know you're disassociated in your sex life?
That's a good question. I think, how do you know? I think, if you find your mind wandering lots, if you
Mm.
find that you're not actually like feeling, if you're being touched and you can't feel it, that's often a really good sign. Sometimes we can be quite numb, and that can be also, trauma related too. But yeah, there's a real, I think, really kind of concentrating and paying attention to all of the senses whilst you're in an intimate situation is really important, and bringing yourself, as you said, to the present. And that, yeah, concentrating on that really. And if you find that there's some issues where you don't know what's happening, your mind's somewhere else, then that's probably a good sign of being disassociated.
Thank you. Would you recommend someone with ADHD, or, anyone in general, before having sex because we're talking about that presence, like, would you recommend like grounding yourself before, or like, I don't, again, this sounds silly, it's like a morning routine, but like, would you recommend that to people, like to do something before they go and have sex to ground and feel
A-
more present?
Absolutely. And again, that will be really dependent on the individual. I think things like focusing on your breathing, doing some breathing exercises, or asking your partner to bring you back into the present often. Like you can do there's some little like tips, like, just your partner asking you how that feels, getting some feedback, getting keeping the communication, keeping eye contact with your partner. I love that you're writing that down.
Talking, that's a good one, because most people like, assume you want to talk. We're good at talking, having a full on blown conversation.
We're really good at talking, but if your partner is like, how does that feel? And you can't just say yes or no, you're actually having to tell them. And so then that brings you back into the present, that brings you back into your body.
Yes.
and giving your partner feedback. I think we're kind of like, we've got this notion in our heads that for it to be really sexy, we don't communicate, and actually there's nothing more sexy than communication. And
So true. I didn't even think of it like that, because, like, especially in the bedroom, like, communication, that you would assume, like, talking ruins it, but actually we love communication's everything. It's the most attractive thing.
exactly. And eye contact is also really, really important. So eye contact keeps us connected, and it keeps us present. And it's a really beautiful experience with somebody as well, you know.
Sorry to interrupt, but I need your help. I've just launched the very first CPD certified ADHD coach training for the sports and wellness industry. So whether you're a yoga teacher, Pilates instructor, or sports coach or therapist, or just somewhere in between, this training has been specifically designed for sports and wellness professionals who want to make a real difference. But why? Because it is proven that movement and meditation is game-changing treatment for individuals with ADHD. So now more than ever, we need professionals just like you who truly understand what it's like to live with ADHD. So we can start to lead the way and create accessible environments for everybody and every mind. So if you're ready to create a career that gives you freedom and also allows you to have a positive impact on the lives of others, then check out our website, untangledco.com, and join our first online training this May. How can someone, I'd say this thing, say Re-Sparkalizing, like routines. We do Re-Sparkalizing routines, we Re-Sparkalize all these different things.
Tell me about it.
Because we know we're going to get bored. Like, so I'm always saying to my clients, like, the reality is you are going to get bored. So you have to accept it. But instead of ripping it up and saying, oh, I'm not going to do that thing ever again, actually what is working about it and what maybe needs a little bit of a change. So for example, I always say about my morning routine, it could be changing my playlist or changing my movement or whatever it is. But it's just a Re-Sparkalization. What could we do knowing that with ADHD, one of the biggest things we face is boredom, like boredom is kryptonite, and getting bored of our sex lives is going to be one of those things. What ways can we Re-Sparkalize our sex lives?
Okay, so I mean, I think this just applies across the board. I I am I need to learn new things. And so I think whatever it is, if you get into as you say, if you get into the same routine and you do everything the same way each time, it's fucking boring. So think about what's a new thing that you can learn, what's a new thing that you can try, you might have seen something on a porn movie and like, let's try that, or heard something. There's always things to try. There's always like courses you can take, like try tantric sex, or try, there's so many things out there
We
that
love a course.
exactly, we love to learn new
Love to
things.
learn. It's one of our biggest strengths.
So that's the way, I think. Try new things. Don't be scared to keep things novel, even just doing it in a different place, like just don't commit to it only being in the bedroom under the covers. Like go in the shower and do it, or I
Yeah.
don't
Or in
know,
the forest.
you love trees. Go in the forest and do it. The trees will love you for that.
There we go, extreme. Do you know what? This is really great because we focus a lot on the struggles of ADHD in all of these areas, and especially sex. But actually, this is where we could really, instead of getting shameful and feeling bad that we're like, oh, I'm bored of sex, and we can get in our own head, and actually we're just going to show up even worse for our partner or whoever it is, we're having sex with. This is coming from a place of strength for us, and this is what it's all about. It's like, right, stop focusing on the struggle, and where can we bring what we're good at into the relationship, and then that actually gives us something to feel proud of like, oh, I've got this. If we want to do new things, you can count on me for that,
Definitely. And there's so many things. There's so many things. You can try spanking, or you can suck a toe, or you can do like nipple clamps, or you know there is like the list is endless. So get spicy.
Get spicy.
Oh,
Is
you're
your book
definitely
got...
red now, aren't you?
It was the toe, though. It was the toe. I'm definitely going to be going on Google, though, looking at courses after this. That'd be a good one. What's the most random course you've seen for sex? Spicing up sex life or re-sparkalizing?
Oh my God.
How to get better at sucking toes.
That would be great, wouldn't it? I don't know. I can't even think of something. I can't think at the moment. I'm sorry.
We need to create one for ADHD. Okay, let's just quickly talk about boundaries. You said last time we met that they were the most crucial part of your post-diagnosis process. I think with ADHD, before we get diagnosed, we're like, what the hell is that word beginning with B? Like, we don't even know what a boundary is. So why is it important, and what boundaries have you put in place?
Sorry, I'm just thinking about at the moment, I'm thinking about how my views have moved on a little bit from boundaries. Boundaries. So my partner said to me something about you don't need a boundary if you care about it. And she puts it so much more eloquently, but I just can't remember what it is. But something like, you don't need to tell people what your boundaries are, but if you really care about something and you want to like look after that thing, the boundaries will come naturally. And it's really
Love this.
true. Yeah. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
really true. It made me look at it really differently. I was looking at it really quite rigidly because when I did get a diagnosis, boundaries were so important to me because I felt like I think I felt I had my self-esteem was really low and I felt my boundaries were so wavy and movable and I just needed some rigidity because that was never there in the first place. But I think now I've moved on a bit in the process. And the more respect, the more self-worth, the more self-esteem I have, I don't need to put boundaries in. I just need to move differently. And if I move differently, other people will move differently.
I love this.
Yeah. So it's like, for instance, if I'm really not having a good time in a relationship, I'm going to just move away. I'm not really going to communicate what my boundaries are because 9 out of 10 times people don't give a fuck what your boundaries are or whether
It's
you
so good. And
or
it sort
whether
of
you
has that wall thing, doesn't it? Like, you just said about creating communities and we want to connect more. I do
yeah,
think even the word boundaries does feel quite triggering to me when someone goes, I've just got to put my back. I don't know if it's just got the connotation of it or whatever it is, but it does feel a bit like, okay, like
yeah.
we're serious here,
And
you
actually
know?
sometimes boundaries can be just a bit of avoidance, right? You just don't want to have the
Yeah.
difficult conversation. um
True.
I'm a lot better at having difficult conversations now. Um, and I think that's something we learn as when our kind of self-esteem gets better. And
Yeah.
I think, yeah, I just move differently now. So I don't really enforce boundaries so much, but it definitely was something I needed to enforce at a certain point in my life. And now I don't need to enforce it anymore. I just am different.
Yeah, that's what was going through my mind when you said that. It was like, so, maybe we're at a stage in the beginning where things were just boundaryless and we don't even know what it is. And maybe while we're trying to learn about boundaries, we're you know, doing that thing where we're like, oh, I'm setting this boundary. Um, but I love simple tools, and especially for ADHD. And I think, again, going from a place of strength, we're quite intuitive. We feel deeply like everything, like it's a curse and a gift. We feel everything deeply. Um, what a simple prompt to give somebody and say, who's going, oh, how do I set boundaries? And they get all like in their head about, I do set boundaries. Where do I set them? How? What do I say? Well, what do you care about? And just
Exactly.
see how, what would you do to protect what you care about, and see naturally with your intuition how that plans out.
Yeah, exactly. And I think if you think about it in terms of, say, for example, you've got a pet or a child, you know, you don't have to enforce boundaries with other people about how you treat that child or how
No, they
you
just know.
just they just know. And so
Yeah.
it's like, think about it, think about yourself in that sense. You are a treasured, possession, if you, in a sense, and people need to know how not to treat you, and that's really important. Yeah, just thinking of yourself like that is for me quite helpful.
Yes. And that's, and when people say how you look after yourself will ultimately, how people will look after you and treat you. So again, it goes back to starting with you, yourself,
It really
and
does. Yeah,
and that will
it
filter through.
definitely. And I think a lot of people with ADHD really struggle with confidence and things. So that's one of the things that needs to be built up, I guess, first, when especially when you come to the realization that that's you, really focusing on yourself, and how do you sort of like just find new ways of being you, and
Mm.
really living into who you are, and not being ashamed of it, and not being like broke, thinking that you're broken almost. That's what is the first thing to work on, rather than sort of figuring out everyone else.
Yes, and it's the most important thing. And actually, wow, I'm having all these dots connected to myself right now. But I'm like, it isn't no surprise that I was in long-term relationships constantly before my diagnosis, and this is the first time I've been single. So yes, there's been this thing of
Oh,
like, where I was like, I'm avoiding it, and then starting to feel bad about this thing that I'm not doing. But actually, when you speak about this, it's okay. Maybe that's because now it's about me and learning about me, and obviously helping others while I'm doing that. Maybe that's what has to come first right now, is building that
definitely.
confidence and looking after ourselves before we can start
Yeah,
to bring in these. It's the same if someone, wants to use their diagnosis to unmask their career. How can
yeah,
they do that until they've got the confidence to, with
exactly.
themselves?
Yeah, I'm really happy for you that you're single right now and you're focusing on that.
Oh, thank
That
you.
No, that's really cool. That is really cool, because actually, you know, sometimes it is really easy to hide in relationships that aren't necessarily good for us, right? And the best thing I ever did was to be single and to really fucking do some digging, you know? And
Yeah,
you can't really do that in relationships often. You really need to do some self sort of analysis, and and
definitely.
and then come into the next relationship better.
Exactly. Because that's the thing. I think we're people pleasing. Well, I know I was back in, the day, and you're distracted. This is a new distraction. Like a boyfriend became a hyper focus,
Yes,
so I can
100%.
avoid all my shit.
Yeah. And you end up merging with people often. You end up not knowing what your values are, what your likes are, because you kind of go into them. Often,
Yeah,
I found that with me anyway. I
same.
my likes were what they liked, and it was
Yeah, my
really
friends were
hard.
their friends. I
Yeah,
liked the food they ate. I even started watching programs I didn't even care about, but all of a sudden I did.
exactly. Exactly. And that is what's wonderful about being single. You're forced to figure out what the fuck you want and need.
Yeah, loving it. So, how long was you single for?
How long was I single for? At least a year. At
Mm,
least a year, but yeah. And it was just, it was so needed. It was so neat. I didn't necessarily know it at the time, but not all the time, but yeah, it was wonderful, and I definitely feel much more stronger and a completely different person in this relationship than I've ever been before. So that feels good.
yeah, showing up as your
Mm,
best self.
yeah.
One last thing before I go into the fire round. You mentioned about, being because I spoke to you about when I lived in Amsterdam for a year and how they were so different around sex with their children, and they were just openly speaking about it with them. And
Mm.
actually, they've got one of the lowest, or it's almost non-existent, teenage pregnancies out there. Why is it so important that we should be talking to our children, do you think, about sex on, and should we be talking about it in school?
I mean, we should just talk about it all the time. It's like I find it so weird that there's this cloud of mystery around sex when it's the most natural thing in the world. Of course, we should be talking about it. And the more you kind of put mystery around it, the more intrigued people are going to be about it, right? So it makes sense that they've got a really low teenage pregnancy rate because there's not this kind of like mythical thing off in the distance that children are going to be attracted to. And just being realistic about it, I think, like, there's good and bad things and they should all be discussed. And let's stop calling, we need to name parts what they are, and vulvas and vaginas, and just like you name an arm and a leg, it's just another part of the body. So
Well, it's crazy, isn't it, really, when you
yeah,
think about it? And you said it was part of safeguarding as well. Do you believe like that's another, as part of safety for children to be able to know that they can talk about it?
100%, 100%. I think if children know that there is no shame and embarrassment around talking about it, then they are in a much better position not to be preyed upon in 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 the crudest sense.
I just love that this whole mission has come from you having girls as well and you wanting to change that story for them, because I think, that's what we say, we use struggles as our strengths, and you're doing that and having a positive impact for the
Yeah.
future.
Oh, thank you.
Amazing. So quick fire round, theme song for your ADHD, what would it be?
There's a song called Daydreaming. That would be
There we
me.
go. Daydreaming.
I mean, that is basically the whole of my school years.
Yeah. Whole of our school years too. What's an unexpected strength you think comes directly from your ADHD?
Unexpected strength. I think this is going to sound so big-headed, but I think I'm really good at lots of different things. Like
Yes.
I learn
That is
how
not big-headed.
well, I learn how to
Confident.
do something and I'm just really good at it really quickly. And then obviously I move on. But yeah, I know how to do lots of things.
Yes. And again, I love that because it's what's it called? Demystifying or whatever, debunking that myth that we get so hung up about that, oh, I do lots of different things, but I'm not the master of one thing. Well, who said you need to be?
Yeah. But
You
I
know?
actually am like
Yeah. Yeah, the master of all these things.
yeah. I
It's the
I
confidence.
I don't like doing things if I'm not good at it. So I have to nail things before I will move on. So that's yeah.
Do you read instructions or watch videos, or you just do it intuitively?
I cannot read. No, I don't listen to instructions unless I'm doing it at the same time. If somebody's talking through something, but I can't watch something or read through instructions and not do it at the same time. It has to
Okay.
be, it's a doing thing for me.
Yeah, I think I find that of a lot of us, and I think when I've hired people or asked people to help me out, I've realised it even more so that that's really difficult because I can't really tell them how I do something because
No.
I've never watched anything. We just go over our intuition and just do it
Yeah.
and learn as
Which
we do it.
which is another good thing because I often find I do things differently and quite creatively than how the traditional way of doing things are. So I'm
Yeah,
always rediscovering things and like yeah, just tinkering basically.
exactly. Yeah, just letting
Mm.
us do our thing, figure it out for ourselves. ADHD in one word.
Do you know what? I'm going to say normal because when I go back
Wow, I
to
love that. That's the first time someone said that.
yeah, when I go back, I think instead of looking at us as the ones who were wrong or not normal, I think we're probably the ones that are actually the normal ones, and everyone else is the ones who are just like conforming.
Do you know what? It's so funny. I went to an event a few weeks ago and someone had this view. He was actually neurotypical and he stood up and said, I think we got the ratio wrong. I think there's going to be more neurodivergence than there are neurotypicals.
100%.
And I literally, I've got goosebumps again now saying it, but it was the first time I'd heard that view and you've said it now again. And I'm like, this actually makes so much sense.
It really does. I think we I think we're kind of socialized into thinking that there's something wrong with us, but actually what you'll discover is we're just the ones that are normal and actually just,
Got and made shit happen.
yeah.
Damn it. If you could go back then, would you choose a life with or without ADHD?
With 100%.
Yeah. There's only few people that
1000%.
said no. Yeah, me too.
Really?
Hmm?
But also it depends on what stage in your diagnosis you are, right?
Yeah.
Because there will
Day
be,
you're having.
yeah, exactly. Yeah,
It
exactly.
depends how
Because,
many parking fines I've had that day.
yeah, oh God. There was a lot of grief that came with my diagnosis. So I would probably in the early days, I was like, it was a real struggle. And I
Mm.
felt quite sad about all of the things I didn't achieve. And, so now my thinking's very different.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's that grief stage, isn't it? Where you're just thinking, oh, how it could have been different. But then, that's when we've got to change the story and go, well, we can't change that. What can we do now?
Yeah.
And that's what
But
you're doing. So
yeah.
great to see you in this place now.
Oh, thank you. That means a
Yeah.
lot. Thank you so much.
What would you say to someone who is maybe a bit shameful at the moment around sexuality, and it's because of their ADHD? Maybe they're going through that, sex addictions, or they're bored in their relationship and they're just feeling a lot of shame around it. What message would you want to share with them?
I think the best thing you can do around anything that you have shame around is to bring it into the light and to talk about it and find that kind of safe person, safe place. Just start talking. The more you talk about something, the more you will discover about yourself and about what's happening, and the more you'll understand it and not have so much shame around it.
That, thank you. And what are you hyper focusing on right now? So projects, anything that people can find and sign up for, communities.
Well, I've got my fishing community that is in Hive near Folkestone. So yeah, there's lots of I'm doing lots around that. So we're like applying for lots of funding and just trying to get basically I'm focusing on funding and getting that to be a long sustainable thing. Also expanding it. So getting we're training up other people to create hubs around the UK. So that's what I'm hyper focusing on at the moment. And that feels really good.
That sounds amazing. And where can people find you?
So they can find me at Starmy Sunday sometimes, but to be honest, I'm a bit over that one now. And I'm mainly at, I'm mainly at We Are Blackfish, which is where I'm doing the fishing community. So come and find me over there.
I love it. And do you have like an email list that people can join? So then in case you change up what you do?
Yeah.
I think that's the best thing for us with ADHD is to have an email list because we change a lot of what we're doing.
Yeah, definitely. Just go on my website, starmysunday.com, and you can sign up to that. Yeah.
Newsletter. Amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you. It was lovely chatting to you.
So much fun. You too. Thank you so much for joining me on the ADHD Untangled podcast. I hope that these episodes are inspiring you to step forward with confidence despite the struggles that you face with ADHD. If you want to find out more about ADHD coaching, retreats, trainings, then check out my Instagram, ADHD_Untangled, or my website, untangledco.com. Let's get untangled and show the world what we are made of.